Welcome to meeting number 6 for the Metro Plan Orlando Regional Vision Zero Task Force. And we're here today to kind of give you an overview of what we've accomplished over the past year or so, and talk a little bit about where we go from here. So I see we're up to at least about 10 members here. See if there's anybody else who needs to be brought in. All right. Well, as most of you are aware, we've been working not only on this regional plan, but all of the local government plans as well, all 3 of our counties and all of our municipalities, except for the city of Orlando, which already has its own Vision Zero plan. It's actually a process of updating that. And so today we're going to focus on as we typically do, on that regional plan and where that's going to take us from there. So let me go ahead and share my screen and show you what we. Of course, you've all had a chance to look at the plan and give us comments. I mean, we have received comments back from some committee members that are very helpful. And we are looking to closing that out at the end of this week so that the Fair and Pierce team can then pull in all those comments and changes and get them to our committees later in August and then to our board for adoption in September. All right. So for those of you who have looked through it, you've seen we've got 7 key chapters in here, as well as an executive summary, kind of a typical plan layout where we lay out the basics of it in the executive summary, so people who don't have a lot of time can at least get a basic understanding of what the plan is about, and then going more in depth into why we need this plan, getting into the data, describing how we reached out to the community, especially through all those local plans. That was our better way to reach out on that. And then starting getting into the solutions, the strategies, the projects that we'd like to see brought forth, and then really making this into an ongoing plan of actions is going to inform Metro Plan's planning activities for the coming years. Is that this isn't just a one and done. This is an ongoing effort, and a key part of that is going to be monitoring and implementing the plan as we move ahead. Again, we have the executive summary, which gets into the needs, the issues, how we get to zero, and what we've learned along the way. In the first chapter, we look at policy elements that are needed to make change, the core elements of a Vision Zero plan, and the approach, that safe system approach that we've been talking about, where we really have a new approach to safety, that it's not just about blaming the users for their behavior, but really looking at the whole system and the built environment, and how behavior in the built environment work together for better or for worse. And then how are we going to implement that strategy going forward? We outline the causes of the crashes, who's involved, the level of crash severity, as you see here with when we start talking about the vulnerable road users, that they're a fairly small proportion of total crashes, but as we go up in severity, they become a much bigger component of that. And then what are the characteristics of the roads on which these crashes are happening? What are the contributing behaviors that come into play here? And from this, we develop a high injury network and a set of strategies for addressing both the behavior and the built environment. As you can see here, our teams spent a lot of time and met with a lot of people throughout our region to get their feedback, to identify key things in their particular communities, problems that they're seeing that may not necessarily show up just in our crash data. Throughout this process of developing a regional plan, that has all informed the local plans. So as we step down from the regional scale to the county scale to the municipal scale, we have consistency across all the planning efforts, using the same crash data, using the same methods of developing the high injury network, giving people the templates, giving the local governments the templates for developing their own resolutions and their own policy benchmarking efforts, and then giving them toolkits so that they don't have to create those from scratch. So really streamlining the process so that all of your local governments can have a plan with a very efficient amount of work to get there. And then the plan gets into the toolkit of strategies, right? That it's a combination of engineering and non-engineering, and then also the policies, and focusing on this safe system hierarchy, where we want to focus first foremost on, when we can, on removing severe conflicts. That is often a bigger lift, right? Because it's more wholesale changes to the roadway, but we know that's where we're going to get the most impact. But working our way down all the way to things that are easier to implement, but may not have as much impact. But all of these things are important all the way up and down the scale. It's just a matter of understanding what the limitations are and how these solutions are all going to work together. From all of this data, we can then develop project development strategy. So we have our prioritization and project development within the plan, but this will also inform going forward. It will inform our long-range plan, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. But starting off with a really important part is these identifying the network-wide countermeasures, issues such as lighting, looking at transit stops and crashes that are associated with those, because we're seeing those concentrations. How can we do a better job of managing speed? What sort of strategies can we put into place that is regional in scope, such as adjusting signal timing? Where can we prioritize technologies such as red light cameras and such? So there's generalized countermeasures, and then as we get into the specific corridors, there'll be more specific countermeasures, obviously. And so one example of that, here's one of the cut sheets of a particular corridor, John Young Parkway, from Colonial Drive down to Orange Center Boulevard, and identifying again those corridor-wide types of issues such as speed and lighting. But then you can see all the crash locations here and call outs for countermeasures at specific intersections and other high crash spots along the corridor. So These have been developed for each of the top 30, was it, Catherine? Top 30 corridors. And then so that we can then develop these into projects down the road.
And yes, it was the top 30. Sorry, I had the double mute on.
Thank you. And as I mentioned before, as we then bring that into prioritizing for getting projects on the ground, of course, we want to focus on the areas that have the highest crash problem, and so that's the safety history score. We want to give some weight to corridors that are in our transportation disadvantaged areas. There's a weight for the safety benefit, or what type of countermeasures are going to be implemented, and then for whether or not the project is of regional significance, and then also timeline. Is this something that has not only a good benefit to cost from a dollar standpoint, but from a time standpoint as well? As we've discussed in the past, we're shooting for 2050 target year for reaching zero fatalities and serious injuries, and that gives us our path for targets, interim targets along the way. So one of the key components of this is adopting a resolution that will be done hand in hand with adopting the plan itself. So that will be part of the September board meeting action. We've identified 37 different actions for MetroPlan Orlando as an agency to continue on an ongoing basis from a planning standpoint, for data monitoring, for helping out our local partners, everything we need to do to make this a coherent, ongoing safety effort that is across the board through all jurisdictions, and that is effective. And measuring our effectiveness is really critical. So monitoring, we've identified a number of data points that we want to monitor in the coming years, so that we can see what kind of impact we're having, both on the crash side, but then also on the implementation side. What have we put on the ground? What have we put out there in the way of education and outreach? For those who want to dig into the weeds, the plan has a copious number of technical appendices. There are so many important components to a plan like this that are very technical, because this is a data-driven process, and the amount of data, the number of data points for crashes is immense. But fortunately, with newer strategies and newer technology, we can keep track of all of that. Excuse me. And we have appendices for all of the planners who want to dig into those and get a better understanding of what we're measuring and where we're going. I think I brought it up before that we are looking to submit another grant application for the Safe Streets and Roads for All federal grant program. So this would be supplemental planning. The things that we've identified through this planning process leads us to additional work that we want to do. And so we've been talking to all of our local partners on things that they would like to see as part of this application, and then about this internally. And so here's what we currently have. There's the public participation components to it. the crash data analytics side of things, and then getting started on roadway safety audits for corridors, especially the ones that have not already had more in-depth safety studies. And then some additional planning that will inform the regional plan, so that for as we continue to develop and update that in coming years. So as we had with this current grant, we'll be providing the non-federal match, which sort of constrains what we can submit for, because there's a percentage involved on that. We will be communicating with all of our local partners, requesting letters of support on this, and while the deadline is August 29th, we hope to have our grant out there earlier than that, as soon as we can get it ready to go. All right, I'm going to take a little break right here before I get into these actions, and just see if there are any questions from committee members, from task force members, on what I've covered so far. Because we're going to have a number of plans, slides here coming up that will kind of dig into the weeds on what Mesh Plan is going to be doing in the coming years. So any questions so far? Seen a couple of thumbs up, which is nice.
Oh, there I am. Hey, I couldn't find my raise hand button. So I have just a few comments that I've made on the document regarding some of the data visualization and all of that. Is that all right to send over, or is that past the point in the drafts at this point?
Oh, please go ahead and yeah, send that to us. Yeah.
Okay, and then I wanted to share for the group that I've expressed interest in partnering on some of the implementation grant activities, specifically with any demonstration activities that may relate to people experiencing homelessness or transit and the intersection with traffic safety. I'm not sure that I got a good read on if that was going to be part of the Metro Plan next application or not. So just wanted to put that out for the rest of the folks on the group. And then I have some in the weeds questions that I'll include with the comments on the data visualization. Just probably clarification on my part for me.
To your point about homelessness and crashes, that is definitely something that's in our list of actions. I'm not sure if that's something we're addressing in the supplemental, but we can discuss that. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? All right, and we'll bring the presentation back up here. Oops. Okay. All right, can everyone still see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so here's where we get into, as I mentioned, 37 different activities. I'll try to go through
Oh,
these.
wait, actually, maybe we're on the wrong screen, Mike. We're seeing this task force meeting 6. The
Oh,
actual-
okay, all
yeah.
right. So, a second here. There we go.
There it is.
All right, so as mentioned, we have a resolution with some fairly straightforward things, joining the Vision Zero network. And then supporting our local partners with doing so as well. Talking about getting more active in our safety coalition meetings, just attended the Ped and Bike meeting last week. And then there's a number of other, coalitions that DOT has for other safety efforts that we'll be getting involved with. Another key thing is talking about the future of this task force. Comes to, there's really a need for having a group like this. So we want to talk about what's the frequency of meetings, the makeup of the membership, what type of entity is it? Is it an actual committee, advisory committee, or is it something else? How do we make the best of continuing the work of this task force? We'll be doing an annual report on progress. As I mentioned here earlier, we have all the data points that we're going to be tracking, and so that we can share with the community what and one another with how we're performing. And then a really important part is how we align this Vision Zero action plan with our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And so we're already setting up for that with our data, so that everything's seamless in bringing the Vision Zero data into our long range, our MTP data, and how we bring the safety element into all the projects that are going to be part of that 2050 plan. We are developing a Transportation for All plan, which is what gets into issues of those who are transportation disadvantaged in various ways, whether by income or disability or et cetera. And so because of the important overlap between safety and disadvantaged communities, want to engage that group in an ongoing basis when it comes to safety as well as for mobility. Also within the first year, looking at other grant programs that might be available that we can continue to take advantage of, and then continuing our outreach. And we've started that as far as the messaging, the safety messaging, but there's a great deal more that can be done in that area. Target speed reductions. We've identified that with our speed targeting plan, and it's of course a very really important component of this Vision Zero plan, and then getting those target speeds out there coordinated with our local partners, particularly FDOT, so that we can do what we can in the short term for getting speeds down with a system that doesn't take a lot of infrastructure change, but knowing that in order to really have that speed impact, we're going to have to change the built environment as well. Pilot projects, we are doing that as part of this grant. I'll be talking about that a little bit later as far as the one for each of the counties, but again, that's something we can continue working on as we identify issues that need some more study, need some more development. And then are really important, before and after studies and developing the process so that we have a good methodology for understanding all the key factors and collecting those before a project is built and then after. Keeping track of enforcement activities, and seeing what the impact is on those. Mentioned before, road safety audit, we're already starting to identify that, and we're working with Federal Highway on some trainings so that local planners and engineers can get familiar with the road safety audit process and actually start getting to work on those on a couple of our corridors on our high entry network as part of that training effort. We've already done some work with complete streets policy, but that can be strengthened going forward. And then we will look into the 3-year range of efforts, looking at best practice strategies for local agencies that address safety. And particularly when we're looking at the development review process. So much of what is done in the built environment comes through development, and so helping our local partners maximize that potential. The system performance metrics, which we've talked about a little bit earlier, and then education, mentioning here safety, pedestrian safety, but really, all modes. There's still work to be done on the education side, so people understand not only what the law requires of them, but the key strategies they should be using to maintain their safety. Maintenance of traffic. This was actually something that got a lot of attention at the Ped and Bike DOT coalition last week. That it's a really important issue, not only for pedestrians and cyclists, but obviously for the people who work on the roads, who are out there on those work zones, and ensuring that we're doing everything that we can as a planning agency to make sure those efforts are up to standards and being implemented. Helping the counties update their design standards from a safety and speed management standpoint. As mentioned before, traffic signal timing, which is something we've been doing for a number of years, but now with a greater focus on getting the speeds down to the range that we want, and can we use traffic signal timing to achieve that. Collaborating with other MPOs. We've already had some hints of that, that there are certain things that have to be done at a statewide level to improve safety, and that if we work with our peers around the state, that's something we can help to advance. And then there's more than just the crash data. There's other data sources that can be useful for all of our local partners, and doing what we can to provide that information for all of you. Emergency vehicle preemption and other methods for getting our emergency vehicles both to the scene and to the hospitals, and particularly to level 1 trauma centers. And more planning to be done on that. And then looking at the 20 miles per hour speed limit, the 20 is plenty approach, seeing what does it take to implement that at a local basis, and what can we do as a regional entity to help the local governments implement that approach. Traffic incident management is of course a key component of this. What can we do to help people get on the scene, and as well as getting the scene cleared? Researching and exploring the crash modification factors, and how do we bring that into the project prioritization process? It can be quite the challenge. There's so many of those modification factors, and they're kind of a moving target, if you will. But it will give us a more data and objective database and an objective approach to the prioritization process. Expanding on the Safe Routes to School program, looking at that on a regional basis and tying that more to our high injury network. As Laura mentioned earlier, the extent to which unhoused persons are involved in bike and pedestrian crashes. There was a federal highway presentation on that last year, showing that in some other regions, it can be quite significant, as much as a third of pedestrian fatalities involving people who are unhoused. So identifying those areas in conjunction with local social services groups, as well as, of course, cross-tabbing that to our crash data. Trying to get a handle on injuries for pedestrians and cyclists that don't involve a motor vehicle, or where there was a motor vehicle that left the scene, but there was no crash report. We know from our public health injury prevention data that there are a significant number of bicyclists and even pedestrians who are injured without a motor vehicle involved, and getting a better handle on the causes of those and locations of those. And then, getting a sense of, are we also having hit and run crashes that don't even result in a crash report? And then, of course, every plan needs to be updated. So we're in that 5-year range here of efforts, and that's where we would be looking at that. So that concludes our update of the plan and where we go from here. Okay, so any other questions or comments about that presentation, about the plan? Lauren, I see your hand up.
Yes, hi everyone. Mike, I'm so excited by all the projects. I think this is exactly the direction that we need to be going. I do have one recommendation, although you may have already thought about this and have this moving forward, but similar to what TRB does as far as this committee moves forward, maybe, have a call for anyone who might be interested in certain things, certain projects that you're working on. For instance, RSAs. For those of us that have experience with RSAs, maybe we can help with, actually helping jurisdictions and local agencies learn a little bit more about RSAs, going out with them, showing them the kind of things to look for. Same thing with, reviewing some of the larger projects that are connected with the federal funding. And those larger MOT projects, you got a lot of people with a lot of good experience and knowledge, and it might be helpful to kind of, be able to use this in that way. That's all I have.
Okay. Oh, so you're offering as far as your organization. So
yeah, and any other
okay.
organizations that are, all of
Okay.
us that are here, but whoever would like to,
Okay.
volunteer a little bit of time to kind of help. This is a suggestion.
Okay. Great. Laura.
Hi, I'm really excited about this. I think the plan looks fantastic, and you guys have done a great job incorporating our feedback throughout this process. So it's really exciting to see it all come together like this. Implementation is not as clear-cut as putting a plan together. So one thing I was thinking about, especially with these next steps, and the ones that may face a little more resistance, such as reducing speed limits or some of the countermeasures that are someone's not going to like, but has the opportunity to save a lot of lives. Is there a way we could create some talking points that, if implemented on a region-wide level, reducing the speed limit to 20 miles per hour in residential streets could save X number of lives a year. I know that that's kind of like not hyper specific statistics, but it could be some compelling information to help make the case for some of these less than favorable countermeasures out there.
Thank you. Good. Anyone else?
Looks like
It
Emily
looks
had
like
her hand raised.
Emily.
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize. I am kind of in between things today. I apologize. I missed like the first 30 minutes of the meeting. So I did want to circle back. I do have a question related to Safe Routes to School. So is the intent that you all are going to put that program together and fund it locally, or are you using or hoping to utilize the existing funding from DOT in the state?
Well, we have been funding Safe Routes locally, so with our federal SU dollars. So in addition to the transportation alternatives funds, we've set aside some of our more flexible SU funds for Safe Routes projects. It's more on the planning side of
Okay.
getting more coordination between. Typically what we get is we get projects from the counties as to where they'd like to go, and cities as to where they'd like to do Safe Routes projects. But we haven't really looked at it on a systemic basis and tied that to this Vision Zero planning.
Mike, I'd like to add to that, to Emily's question about Safe Routes. So statewide, FDOT only has about $7.0 million for 67 counties for Safe Routes to School projects. It's quite the application process, as I understand it, especially as it relates to participation from principals and PTA and kind of everything else that kind of that goes into that. As part of our adopted long-range plan, our board already has a funding policy to spend at least $1 million a year on a school mobility program. So our hope with this is to provide more structure and focus to that as it goes into our 2050 long-range plan, to revisit funding policy and also eligibility. The federal funds that we identified have to be spent on the federal aid network, so collector streets and above. So that does create some restrictions, but that's something that we're going to be revisiting during our long-range planning process as we're identifying critical gaps and accessibility opportunities to schools, and then funding those accordingly through FDOT's local agency program, the LAP process. So we'll be leveraging what we can, hopefully streamlining, not making it making it as burdensome to locals, so we can start chipping away at those critical needs.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I appreciate that further information.
All right, David, get your hand up.
Thank you, and I love this continued conversation about the Safe Route to School, current PTA chair, as Alex mentioned. So my question, and thank you for that number, that was much smaller than I anticipated for the entire state. Up to this point, and we've been pushing in the Horizon West area in Orange County, for safe, biking programs and walking programs, because that was how our neighborhoods were designed. For a while now, we've been pushing for this for a long time. And so my question is, are districts coming to you as a comprehensive approach? Is OCPS coming to you for funding district-wide, or has it been sort of individual schools, like you mentioned, principals and PTAs?
Yeah, so the Safe Routes program is administered by FDOT. Metro Plan Orlando, as the planning organization, has to sign off for planning consistency. But every year, the FDOT District Safety Office does a call for projects, and they call for projects, evaluate them, and make those selections at the district and state level. So that's done. The mention of principal and PTA was the application in and of itself has to have buy-in from those folks. So it's kind of twofold. It comes from the schools or a county or local jurisdiction. Osceola County probably has the most experience in our region. And that's actually where Osceola County, not the school board, develops applications and submits those for funding. And we've gotten, or Osceola County has received upwards of $1 million a year. So while the state only has about 7 statewide, we've been pretty, we've done pretty well for ourselves. I see Lorraine from DOT has her hand up, so I'll yield to her for more.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to add that my understanding is that there will be,
Like, you're upside down, Lorraine.
I don't know what's going on. I'm just gonna turn my camera off.
looks awesome.
Glad I didn't do that while I was interviewing the other day. Yeah, so my understanding is that there will be a cycle this year. Last year there was not. There have been some new rules coming down from the federal level of what is needed and what is not needed and that type of thing, just kind of speaking to kind of what Alex was mentioning is, you know, the cumbersome side of it. I will make sure that you guys are aware of the workshops that they're going to be having, I think in person, but also virtually. So I'll make sure you guys have that information.
That's awesome. And thank you, Alex, for the context with Osceola County, because that was sort of what I was getting at too. And that's a great example. You know, if I could work with OCPS, which I've got good relationships with since I've done the Leadership Orange program and worked with Sherry Jacobs over many years, maybe I could coordinate with them so that you are getting, Metro Plan Orlando is getting a sort of a comprehensive application from OCPS for funding for the full year. And OCPS is sort of working within their systems to efficiently identify where the need is. And that I think maybe could make things a little easier on the application process on your end. So I can follow up with I know we're possibly transitioning school board members for my district with the upcoming elections, but I can work with the school board to see what we can do there.
Not
David.
to give away our secrets, this is Mariana Arneberg from Osceola County, but how we start off our applications is working with our community, our CTST, our community, whatever it stands for, where we have the schools, the law enforcement, the county, the cities, all involved in the schools. Basically, we take our applications from the schools, which submit a hazardous walking conditions report, which the district does. And that gives you extra points on the application. So that might be a good place for you to start at the CTST meeting and asking for the hazardous walking conditions from the school district as well.
That's awesome, Marianne. And a former city of Kissimmee resident, you guys just always have your act together. I'm always so impressed with the organization that we experienced with the city of Kissimmee and with Osceola County. So thank you for that, Marianne.
David, so Orange County has a student pedestrian safety committee. It's a regular standing committee. I'm on it. They meet virtually every month, just about every month, and so they go through those hazardous walking conditions, the community requests, parent requests from anything that comes out through the community, whether it's from the schools themselves or from residents concerned about safety issues. So we review those every month, and also, I mean, the county also has a fund, for sidewalks, so that they apply to those issues. So if you want to contact me, I could get you the contact information for that committee, so you can get onto their agenda, or just forward the issues that you'd like to see that committee address.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? All right, so no more raised hands. So a couple other things that we are on our agenda today. As I alluded to, we've got 3 demonstration projects that we are moving ahead with. This was part of the original plan, was to identify a demonstration project, one for each of the 3 counties. And they are moving along. We have in Seminole County a traffic signal video artificial intelligence project to look at near miss tracking. So they have a traffic signal system that is already capable of doing that, just needs the software plugin. And so they've identified a number of intersections throughout the county, and they will be testing out that approach to see what they get out of that. You know, and the point on all of these demonstration projects is to learn about, you know, whatever the demonstration is, and then, you know, share those learnings and then think about what needs to be done, assuming that it's something that is effective. What can be done to distribute those strategies throughout the region to increase their effectiveness. Osceola County is looking at some engineering analysis of mid-block pedestrian crossings and signalized intersection crosswalks for making improvements at high crash locations. So want to see what are the pedestrian movements, what are the conflicts that are happening, so that we can then figure out what the best solutions would be for those high crash areas. And then for Orange County, we are developing a middle school bicycle program pilot, looking at 2 schools, Walker Middle, just kind of in the south central part of the county, and Timber, I always mix it up, Timber Creek or Timber Springs, out east in Avalon, you know, Avalon Park, east part of the county. And so we've got buy-in from the school board on that. We've met with the school principals for those 2 schools, and we'll be working with American Bicycling Education Association, which has developed its Cycling Savvy program, and adapting that for a middle school approach. And it's not going to be a safety course per se. It's going to be a bike club, an after-school bike club, you know, social component to it. It'll be fun, but, you know, we'll sneak in a bunch of safety stuff along the way. So the kids will learn skills. We'll go out on rides around the community, and on those rides, those are your opportunities to stop and talk about issues and help the kids understand how to be, you know, defensive drivers when it comes to bicycling. The other pitch on this for the kids is these are middle school. You know, they're looking at becoming drivers in not too distant future, and think of this as pre-driver's ed, right? We're going to teach you how to drive a vehicle before you get behind the one that has a big motor in it. So we're hoping to launch this, actually get it running in the schools by late October, have it run through a good part of the school year through April, and produce a report to see what our learnings were, what our outcomes were, and again, if we see promise for it, how do we make that into a regional approach? And we'll be pulling in a variety of local partners. I know Bike Walk Central Florida is interested in this, and you know, talk with all the local partners about how we make this work on an ongoing basis. All righty. Any questions about demonstration projects? All right.
Mike, it's not a question, but just we obviously the Best Foot Forward program has a lot of data on mid-block crossings in Osceola, Kissimmee, and St. Cloud. So if there's anything we can do to assist you on that pilot, let us know.
All right, thank you. All right, as mentioned earlier, the application for supplemental planning grants through Federal Highway kind of went over that during the presentation. I guess just are there any thoughts, particularly from the local partners on things that you'd like to see in that, or that you've been considering for some supplemental planning? You don't have to answer right now. Like I said, if the door is open, our lines are open. So just contact me or Alex if there are any ideas that you have that you'd like to see as part of that application. And then also, again, also brought it up in the presentation, the future of this group. Just want to see if there are any thoughts from you all as to what I discussed earlier, you know, the frequency, the makeup, what type of work do you think that this group would be interested in as far as helping out the Metro Plan efforts? Emily.
Not easy to do this on the phone. Question, Mike, on your thoughts on how we continue to support this effort. Are you thinking that our work would be more advisory and we're just continuing to provide ideas and support to Metro Plan Orlando? Or are you thinking that we provide some of the lift to do the work that's in the plan? So I guess, like, what are your thoughts of where you need the people that are on this call, and that might help define the frequency and the goals and things like that, and how we help?
I would say primarily advisory. You know, we wouldn't want to, you know, as far as doing the work, I think we would have to be judicious about that as to if it's something that's of a small enough scale that it's not going to, you know, tax the efforts of volunteers, right? So, and understanding that we want everybody to participate, but certain people would have more time to put into something like that, which kind of, you know, might imbalance things. But yeah, primarily from an advisory standpoint. And to that point, that term advisory, when we talk about advisory committees, once we make a group into an advisory committee, we would need to basically bring everything before that group that's going to go before the board. So there might be all kinds of things having to do with Interstate 4 or, you know, or GOA or something like that, that's going to go before the board, but aren't really part of the safety issues that you all want to address. So we need to think about what type of group this is within the context of Metro Plan's work and process.
Mike, to add, before Humberto, I apologize, but just to add, it's not our intent with this group to formalize it into a standing advisory committee to the Metro Plan Orlando board, but to continue its efforts as it was before our Vision Zero group. It was our vulnerable user safety working group, but to continue this group in a safety advisory role, but not advising on the full metropolitan planning process. You know, feedback from this group can flow into CAC, you know, through our participating members here, through our technical and systems management operations advisory committee. So that's where, you know, this group being kind of multidisciplinary, cross-sector, I think adds the most value without it getting caught up in a lot of the required elements of our other advisory committee process, to make sure that when we meet at whatever frequency, we can focus 100% on safety topics rather than, you know, 60% of the meeting being, you know, other topics that may or may not directly relate to safety. So the intent with this is to provide some structure to the group, so we're not just kind of winging it. And that's something that I've kind of charged Mike to prepare some structure, some bylaws per se, but it's not our intent to make it a standing advisory committee to the board.
Thanks, Alex. Humberto, go ahead.
Yes, Mike. Thank you very much for the Vision Zero regional plan, the safety action plan. I think that is fantastic. And definitely we're looking forward to go to the board for the adoption of our Orange County Vision Zero action plan. And just a little bit of the status, and then I have a question for the committee. Yeah. So we're going to be presenting to the board in August 27th, just to ask for the adoption. One of the things with the plan was that we took, I don't know if that was the approach for all the other municipalities, but for Orange County, not only we had the 25 highest injury network corridors, but also we had our own network within Orange County. So we had 24 additional roads that they were spread across the various districts. And then what we did was that we used the formula for complete streets that we had identified in terms of needs that we use for the sales tax, and I just plug in the numbers based on that formula, and that is per lane mile, and we got that information from VHB. So what we are anticipating is that our needs are going to be $264 million. So what we want to, I know that from the cut sheets, we're going to be getting the costs for the countermeasures based on the short terms, but we are looking at everything, including roundabouts and whatnot. So based on the numbers, which they're staggering, then we plan on initiate the conversation. We have our accelerated transportation safety program, which is $100 million over 5 years, $55 million for public works, $45 million for transit. But within those $55 million, there's only $15 million for safety projects. The other ones are lighting and sidewalk. But the message that we want to bring to the commissioners is that the needs are much greater than the available funding. So not only we need to strategize what we can do as part of our own programs, CIP and the sales tax, but how to go to the ballot, because that was part of the conversation. And it seems that at the time this year, when the mayor wanted to go and to pursue the sales tax initiative again, there was not a lot of appetite, or there was more questions. So now having Division Zero going through this extensive effort, looking at the cut sheets, which they are incredible, then we can initiate the conversation. So we are going to be hitting hot and heavy the funding needs and the gap that we have. I don't know if other municipalities or other counties are trying to approach also as they are presenting the Vision Zero action plans. Then for the implementation, my question to you is that, is there going to be any training provided for the application of the safe systems approach? I know that we have been talking about it, and that's what we're going to be implementing, but how is that going to be being coordinated? We do have the infrastructure and the mechanisms to implement it. I did reach out to FHWA and just to see if they have some training, which they have provided some information. I do want to suggest perhaps as the Vision Zero action plans are adopted, if the training can be provided and go through the Metro plan and to all the region, the agencies and the 3 counties, then it would be a more consistent and cohesive approach, how we go for the implementation. And that way also will facilitate the conversation about funding and some additional initiatives for the deployment of these projects. Mike, you're on mute.
Earlier, I mentioned that we are talking to Federal Highway about getting a road safety audit training. And in my understanding, it's been a long time since I've been through their training, but that they're the current version is much more in line with the safe systems approach, and their speed management is a much bigger element to that. But we can also talk to them if there are other trainings more generally about the safe system approach that we could help to provide on a regional basis for them. From a
Okay,
training
thank you.
standpoint.
And Humberto, that's something that if this group, that I think that where this group can really add value, if there's topics, if there's gaps or deficiencies that we want to bring in federal highway, or, it doesn't always have to be the feds, us requesting it of the feds. If there is a gap, if there is a training need, we see this group as that sounding board to identify that, and then we can, find a way to fund it, whether it's through federal highways, training programs, or us finding another means to see it through.
Okay, thank you, Alex.
Laura.
Yeah, first I'll just +1 everything Humberto just said. That was spot on, I think, specifically with the funding gaps, as well as the ongoing training. I think one thing I've noticed, probably around the 2-year mark, our organization had enough staff turnover of folks that weren't involved in the actual development of our plan, that was around the time we needed to do like a Vision Zero or Safe Systems 101 within 2 years, really sort of hitting the reset button, making sure everyone's on the same page again. As well as having this group, I really see an opportunity for us to monitor the progress and provide some cheerleading, but also like encouragement for MetroPlan and all our agencies to move towards those goals. There's so many actions that we can take as individual municipalities, as a coalition, that having sort of maybe quarterly or biannual meetings to talk, just go through the list. This is what we said we'd do. This is where we're at on them, and what has worked and why we are struggling on some of the actions that we said we would get done.
Just a quick follow-up. Is the group, we haven't talked frequency or format, but would the group, I want to continue meeting virtually, or is there interest, or does it make sense to convene in person?
Lauren?
I think it might be helpful to have like a mixed meeting, because there are some people that would have to travel pretty far. So maybe having partially in person and virtual, I think would be helpful. But it seems like everyone's kind of going in this, and maybe I just didn't explain my thought enough, but I feel like there is enough experience in this committee that we can be very helpful to one another. I know as a representative of the National Safety Council, we have a lot of partnerships with ITE and FHWA, and if we can help in any way, especially with those trainings, if there's things that we can do to kind of move that needle, I'm definitely here to help to do that, as well as whatever we can do to help with your Vision Zero program. So yeah, definitely a mixed meeting group, as well as whatever we can do to help the process.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value to the kind of informal communications that happen that can facilitate small scale but effective, collaboration. It's really hard to do that through this type of this virtual approach. So, Emily.
My suggestion was going to be a little bit similar to Lauren's, but maybe that we convene in person once a year. A summit of sorts. I don't know if that's still something on your all radar. Running the Best Foot Forward Coalition, having these meetings virtually and then having an opportunity to meet in person and cheerlead everyone and get behind and support all these projects, I think would be of value for everyone that's a part of this group. But like I said, I just speak from that experience and the feedback we've received from those partners that are on this call as well.
Thank you. All right, any other thoughts on the task force and how it proceeds? Okay. About any other comments, just in general, open the floor for anything else that didn't fit in anything previous and during our agenda today. Anything else people want to contribute for the good of the order?
I'm going to ask the question, and I apologize if I sound redundant. And I, again, apologize if you covered this because I missed the first half. But did you go over any of the non-engineering countermeasures? And if so, can you provide some, if you didn't, can you provide some detail to those? And then of course, my big question is, what sort of programming was put into those? And just verifying that my comments on those were addressed, because I never did get a follow-up on that.
Well, we really didn't get into that in depth
Okay.
in the presentation. I really didn't get into countermeasures generally, just whether they're physical or not physical. But yes, I mean, certainly those non-infrastructure countermeasures are going to be a key part of our ongoing planning efforts. So continue to grow upon, expand upon what we've been doing and do more. All right, well, we are about to wrap it up here. So as usual, we have a opportunity for public comment. So if there are any members of the public who would like to comment about for today's meeting, you can do *9 if you're on phone, or you can use the raise hand. And we'll give you the opportunity to speak. All right, well, hearing none, seeing none. Thank you all so much for all you've done over the past year or so and helping us guide this big boat, bring it into harbor. And we will be in touch as to what we'll have in store for you in the coming year. So thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.